which is a bomb that will be happening soon in Europe. But I can't disclose. But I promise to come back when it happens. There's no such thing as African religion or African traditional religion. As Africans, we had no religion. It is African, I term it indigenous spirituality. Why do I say indigenous? Because it's indigenous to Africa. Spirituality began in Africa.
Others are merely mirrors of you. Ladies and gentlemen, you cannot love or hate something about another person unless if it reflects to you something that you love or hate about yourself. What you do and make out of life is up to you, because you have all the tools and the resources in your mind, in your heart, and in your body. What you do with them and the attributes you form, it's purely up to you. You have a choice. No one makes you. And all life's answers to the questions that you are facing are inside of you. All you need is to take time to look, to listen, and to understand. Such a great honor today that I get to sit with the great one, the torchbearer of our nation has visited us today. Imboni Dr. Uzwi-Lezwe Radebe is on CEMEX Network today. He's the founder and the leader of the Revelation Spiritual Home, the torchbearer of the nation, the wisdom keeper of our nation. Imboni, welcome to the show.
No, thank you very much, CEMEX. Great to be here together with your viewers.
Such a great honor to be having. I should start by congratulating you. 2025, the Sunhak Peace Prize. It's a big honor and highly acclaimed. Congratulations.
No, thank you very much. It means a lot, not only personally, but it means a lot to all the African, especially spiritual great heroes.
Yeah.
Spiritual people are always left behind. It's always political heroes.
Yeah.
Or your traditional royal heroes. But spiritual specifically are left. And for me, it's a great honor, especially for our spiritual heroes.
100%. And I've seen the National Assembly as well. The Speaker of the Parliament have sent the letter of congratulations, even from Austria, all over the world. Letters congratulating you are coming in. What does that mean, Imboni? Recognition, particularly for African people?
Where are we in the global stage? At the bottom. We all know what happened now, again in America. It means a lot, especially from our own brothers and sisters in our own parliament. It gives us a glimmer of hope that our politicians, little by little, some of them, probably not as collective, but individually, they are starting to kind of see the right path, which way to go, who should advise. So it means a lot to me, to the nation as well.
Does it mean the world now is recognizing African spirituality or the need for African spirituality? I mean, the Sunhak Peace Prize come all the way from Seoul in South Korea. Does it mean the world now start to recognize African spirituality, not just as some cult or some group of people who live weirdly?
Remember that Pisces era is finished. We are now in the Aquarius. And spirituality was mostly suppressed in the Pisces era. That is your era where a lot of religion grew. That is the era where you enter the Dark Ages. That is the era where spirituality was suppressed, especially by religion. And that was the era of, one can say, ignorance. It was all about just believing, not questioning anything. But now Pisces is gone. It's Aquarius now. And Aquarius is awakening. Aquarius is knowledge. Aquarius is asking the right questions. And that's why you see now this great revival going on.
Yeah.
And interestingly, you're asking me that question. Interestingly, Europe, who are the not really manufacturers, but architects, in formations of religion and other systems. Religion is losing traction there. And now, of course, many are going in the route of atheism. But a big sector in Europe is now starting to be interested in spirituality.
Yeah.
I almost said something, but I should not before it happens. Before it happens.
Okay.
Which is a bomb that will be happening soon in Europe. But I can't disclose. But I promise to come back when it happens.
When it happens.
When it happens. Europe is starting to open their eyes. I think you forgot there. I was also awarded in Italy.
Yes. Yeah.
And very importantly, because one have to look at which group is awarding whom. It's a group of academias, a group of lawyers and scholars in Italy. We're not speaking about some organization that has been bought or has an agenda. It's a group of scholars, meaning that scholars who are aware of matters of religion and spirituality globally. So I had to undergo that rigorous checking when they are going to award, and I was selected as the African indigenous spiritual champion. Scholars who know what they are talking about are lawyers and academias. So there's a great interest in Europe. But strange enough, Africa, as usual, will always take behind. Very slow. Very slow. So when we talk about African indigenous spirituality, other sectors are kind of looking at us as speaking a strange language. We are talking about worshipping ancestors and all, but Europe is ahead. So to answer your question, yes, Europe is ahead. And I'm worried. I'm very worried. I'm worried that Europe might look at the concept of spirituality in replacing religion. And I'm worried they might take that concept, work with it, implement it, bring it back to Africa. Just like religion.
And we are back where we're trying to get out now.
And probably now Africans will be behind and will also be starting to be interested and wanting to learn. Because, once it's over there, implemented, the world follows. And Africa now might want to take along, and Africa now will have to come and sell back matters of spirituality. And why I'm saying that, as I said, there's a bomb coming, and even learning institutions are beginning to look at that direction.
Can you please drop this bomb in Imboni? Before it explodes.
I want to leave you and your viewers with suspense. I'll come back.
You'll come back.
It's going to be a good excuse to come back.
Yeah. Okay. Are you not, and I'm happy you saying, now we are fighting or waking up to religion, but Europe is ahead leading the spiritual movement. Where you are you not worried or concerned that we are just on the verge, or already we have turned African spirituality into another religion, where there's no difference? People are struggling to see a difference between African spirituality and religions.
Yeah. When we discuss spirituality, I always say, and sometimes I sound as if I'm going around the bush, or I love to answer in context. Spiritual matters are very complex. I think we have to appreciate it. And we can't discuss spiritual matters. Sometimes I'm on TV 15 minutes, on podcast 1 hour, and sometimes I have to give a yes or no answer. Other answers, because it's a very complex matter. And how do I think we should approach spirituality? I think we should approach spirituality first by those who are revealed, who gets revelation.
Okay.
And one thing I'm going to say, also as a media person, a lot of discussions that happen around spirituality, the lack of those who receive revelations are always absent. Because you can never try to discuss or understand spirituality without revelation. After all, a spiritual thing is revealed. The real source is revelation. There's no other source. I'll make a very quick example for you. Ubungoma, which falls under African indigenous spirituality. When you have Idlozi, an ancestor in you, you don't learn about an ancestor. You have to have an ancestor. And an ancestor reveals whatever that it reveals to you. So when you speak as the one who is revealing what the ancestor is saying or doing. So even Ebungomen, there's revelation, actually. And so we always try to discuss these matters without those who are revealed about the matters. The second source for me is academia, which I'll include research, not Google research, proper research. And that's why I've opened a research institution years ago, African Hidden Voices, which now is partnered with Europe and global researchers. So we are in that pool. We are not a small research organization in South Africa who Google research. We are in the pool of scholars globally, acclaimed scholars. So our researches, they get also peer reviewed by other scholars. So academia is very important. Research is very, very important so that we can speak facts. And then historians. Others would include historians in academia or research. I don't. They are independent. Because you know that sometimes historians themselves, sometimes they will speak about history.
Yes.
And sometimes they'll just speak of history, but not much researched. But research goes deeper. That's why I separate there. So historians. So we have all of that. And when we talk about spirituality, we then speak of an informed, from an informed point of view. Are we worried that spirituality will be turned into religion because of what I've said?
Yes.
Lack of information.
Yes.
Yes, it will be. And many people even confuse it. Sometimes when I speak of spirituality, others think of, I'm talking about religion.
Yeah.
Again, how do we separate? We have to research, we have to go back in time and understand how religion was formed and why elements of spirituality seems to be in the mix of religion. We have to understand the history of religion. Otherwise, spirituality and religion are both independent entities. But the confusion begins with lack of knowledge of what spirituality is and what religion is. But these two are independent.
The spiritual awakening, Imboni, that we see happening throughout the world, how much does it speak to the need to decolonize spirituality, particularly to us as Africans?
Yeah. Again, let's put it into context. Decolonize spirituality. I think we can call that term when we don't understand what spirituality is. Because we cannot decolonize what was not colonized. Spirituality actually was not colonized.
So you're saying our spirituality was never colonized. Can you please explain?
It was never colonized. As I said before, how religion began, it was suppressed. It was suppressed. Again, I love examples. And I love Ubungoma because it's one that I can say, though it was suppressed, but it managed to. My Ubumboni and spiritual guides were more suppressed more. The knowledge is not there. Bungoma at least is known. You look at Ubungoma, Sangoma is a traditional healer, which will qualify as a doctor. But what colonizers term them? Witch doctors. Witch doctors. That was to say they are here, but let's just badmouth them and their title. So spirituality was never colonized. It was suppressed, not colonized. So the confusion begins with these terms of African traditional religion. African religion. That's where the confusion begins. And one thinks that our spirituality was then colonized. It was never. It is scholars who came here, looked at our spiritual practices and systems, and they decided to term them African religion, traditional religion. If you can go to this African religion, African traditional religion, and understand what it is, you are going to see a lot of culture and tradition practices.
Yeah.
And then Nobungoma, but less of what spirituality is. Hence, there's no such thing as African religion or African traditional religion. As Africans, we had no religion. It is African, I term it indigenous spirituality. Why do I say indigenous? Because it's indigenous to Africa. Spirituality began in Africa. As human beings began in Africa. Our spiritual systems also began with us in Africa. From African indigenous spirituality, as humans began to migrate all over the world, change, they started to have different cultures and etc. Then they developed what you call the universal concept of spirituality. So you go to Mexico and you go to the indigenous people there who practice spirituality.
The Maya people, Guatemala, yeah.
Yes. So they are practicing spirituality, but in their own context, which we term it universal. But if you are going to compare what we do here, our spiritual system and theirs, there are a lot of similarities and foundational ways, foundational practices that we are going to find. And those foundational practices did not begin there. They began here and they migrated with the people.
You are the first person, I've interviewed many people, to say and to explain why spirituality was never colonized but suppressed. So I like that. We have many organizations, including churches in Imboni, that are practicing or define themselves within African tradition. You find that this is a church or a movement, African tradition, but they're using the Bible as well. You know, they're Christians. And can you please expand on that, the great one?
Those are called AIS, African Initiated Churches. So again, now we go to Revelation, go to number 2, research. We go to number 2, research.
Yes, yeah.
If proper research shows us that when what you call Western initiated churches, when Western initiated churches came here, which is all known, some years back, some African people began to have some kind of revolt. You know, we are Africans, MX, and Ubu Africa lives in us. Whatever we do, we can stray away, but Africanness will always come up. So they began to have issues in the westernized churches, your traditional westernized churches. No. We want something that speaks to us, because remember, there's conflict between your religion and the African way of life. That is our spirituality, our traditions, and our customs. So when there was that conflict, African people began to not to be comfortable in these churches, because now there were certain messages that were conflicting with their own African ways of belief. So then the Western churches began to use some other members to begin churches. That's why most of these churches you talk about, you'll find that they were not necessarily began by black people. I'm not talking about these Pentecostal new churches and prophets. I'm talking about your initial AICs, African Initiated Churches.
Yes.
They did not begin them by themselves. It was the westernized churches who then said, no, begin these ones. That will kind of mix.
Okay.
That will mix. You don't lose the essence, that is the scriptures and the dogma. But try to accommodate a bit what they want, so that then, so they were a project. African churches were a project of your Western churches. That's when those churches now began. So those churches are mixing. They are mixing your Western doctrine, religion, and mixing some African systems and beliefs. We don't classify them under African indigenous spirituality.
In your view, the great one, is it possible to mix Christianity and Africanism or indigenous African spirituality, where we've got Abangoma opening the Bible and also African indigenous practices?
Okay, fair. Let me straightforward, no. Capital letters, no. And the reason for that is I've explained how it came about.
Yeah.
And I'm going to give you, I think, a very good example of that. Why others mix. And they think that the religion or the Christianity within their African practice gives them power. I'll tell you why.
Yes.
It's actually the confusion that was brought, because they were in that church and the calling came, and so they were not able to define and separate which is which, because the calling came while they were there. So they took it all in one. You know, they took it that probably my ancestors or Izthunywa are working in together with maybe Jesus Christ.
Yes, yes.
I'm sitting here. I was one of them as well. Yes, I passed that stage.
Yeah.
And another good example of that is the I think you'll know the practice called voodoo. Well known on the negative side.
Yes, yeah.
African slaves that were taken in ships who practiced their own African indigenous spirituality. When they were inside the ships, they were forced to practice Catholicism. And they were given Mary and all, Rosemary and all these things within the ships.
Yeah.
Remember, it took years to go.
Yes.
And then you know what they did? When they were inside the ships, they practiced voodoo or African indigenous spirituality. But whenever the slave masters came to see them, they put back the elements of Catholicism. When they arrive in your Caribbeans, in your Americans, etc., the other generations, they thought that it's one, voodoo together with Mary. You can just Google or look at movies. You'll see many people who practice voodoo in the Caribbeans, they'll have the symbols of Catholicism. Then it confuses you. It's what happened in the slave ships. And here in South Africa as well, some of those who were enlightened, who knew they are practicing African indigenous spirituality. Remember that in South Africa, Christianity became a state religion, like it was in Rome. So some who practiced, when the police came, they had to quickly remove, and then they had to quickly put the religious or Christian symbols. So when they died, the generations to come, they kept that system. So this is actually just a confusion. But you can only practice one.
And here's a problem for many people. The Bible is represented as a holy scriptures or the holy book. You've got the Quran. Many religions, they have manuscripts. They've got where they can go to. As African people, particularly, and I like how you call it, the African indigenous spirituality, where do they go for the letters, for the scripts, for the manuscripts to say we refer and reference our way from this?
Let me answer first and say to you, there's no scripture in African indigenous spirituality. Hence, it does not qualify to be a religion. So again, we dismiss the African traditional religion. It can't be because it does not have a scripture. What you would have? It would be knowledge that was passed on by, let's go again, number one, those who were revealed. Spiritual people, leaders like Imboni in the African context.
Imboni. Would Baba Credo Mutwa fall within
Imboni?
Imboni, all right.
Which he was confused.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we can elaborate on that later on. So they would then, when they reveal things, there are things that were then written and kept. Not as scriptures, just as information, written on walls. And again, number two, research. We have that research. Ancient Egypt, ancient Mesopotamia. A lot of knowledge comes from there, written on walls, and things were written. Not just as a guide, not like the religion that says the word of God, as a guide of knowledge that came from different spiritual guiders, spiritual sources. Not one, but different spiritual sources. So just guides. But now I want to take you a little bit back and remember the Dark Ages.
Yes.
Where within Rome, Christianity through the Catholic Church became a state religion with the assistance of through the Council of Nicene. And in that stage, remember, through the Catholic, and then they killed everybody who did not adhere to. And a lot of knowledge that was there was either banned or taken away. And in those Dark Ages, a lot of African especially spiritual knowledge was lost, because the only knowledge, only books, only material that you were supposed to read in those days was the one that they gave. So they wiped it away. That's why you see now there's a bit of lack of the knowledge. But as time went by, yes, things were discovered in Mesopotamia, and things were discovered. So in terms of knowledge, it's a bit limited, but there was knowledge, and there is still knowledge in which AHV, my research institution, is leading in that. Myself, I've been to Egypt. I've been to other places, getting to know the real knowledge. But what is very important in African indigenous spirituality, again, is number one, revelation. We must find the one who receives the spiritual knowledge. It's not written, not dogma. And before you come in, it can sound very problematic. And I once had and I had some time where myself I struggled with this to say no, but why we did not have, because look at the confusion now. And it was revealed to me that no, it was purposely done. It was actually hidden away. Because sacred knowledge cannot be at the disposal of everybody. Going back to your previous questions of people abusing spirituality, confusing spirituality, and look what is happening now. And in Egypt, they had what you call your mystery schools. And I think I'll go to a question you might ask about institutionalizing spirituality.
Yes.
Yeah, they had mystery schools, which not everybody would go. And I don't like to share much deeper spiritual experiences on TVs and podcasts, because it's a subject that people will, you know what I'm saying?
Sensationalize, out of context.
I share it with people who follow me. I have witnesses of things happening, that people who saw things happening. It's much safer for me. But let me put it just a little bit.
Yes.
I've been to those mystery schools in my spiritual form, not in my physical form. So knowledge is sacred, and it's only kept by few.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
I'm going to allow you to sip your coffee as I move into this next question.
Yeah.
Where do we find these ones, the ones who has the revelation? Remember the great one, even these fake pastors that have mushroom now done bizarre things, they have claimed to say, no, we got miracles. Where do we find these ones who have the revelation?
Let's go back to number 2 again, research. If we do proper research, we will know the qualities and the characteristics. Not only that, and some few through research knowledge that survived the dark ages. It helps us to see who they are, what they do. The other way is that they know each other. So if you are a sitting spiritual guider in the present moment, there has to be reference from previous spiritual guiders about you. So it cannot be that you today claim to be, but there's absolutely no reference from previous authentic spiritual guiders, including what they will term prophecies, which personalize, say, revelations.
Yes.
Because the word prophecy comes from prophet, and that's not African. But for the sake of people to understand, prophecies that had to be there about the incoming one, there has to be there. So that's another link that we can be able to see, and also research and knowledge of characteristics.
The great one, there's a lot of confusion now. We see sangomas are resigning. They say they're resigning from this. What are your views when you see such things happening?
Yeah, one, I think they differ. Others, they were never sangomas in the first place. They were chasing clout, they were chasing money and all. Let's get that out of the way. Second of all, others are legitimately so, but it's the pressures of religious colonization and Eurocentric ways of doing things. If you look at things now, it's all about money and power. So when a person has a gift, then probably it's not helping them to probably get rich quicker. The frustration comes in. So if you look at how we live today and how our ancestors lived, not that money is wrong or wealth is wrong.
Yeah.
Our ancestors were wealthy. Spiritual people, be it Isithunywa or Ubungoma, they make a living out of what they do. And there's nothing wrong out of that.
Okay.
But there were no these pressures of being rich quick.
The richest.
The richest. And by the way, you see, ezinye zangoma are on social. Busy showing off monies and riches. And so our ancestors, they were happy with what they had. They were happy with what the gift gave them, but now the pressures of society. So others have a gift, but they are pressured. No, man, it's not giving me enough money. I saw on social media, sangoma buying a car, having money. And then the first attempt they do, uktwala, to remedy the situation. And when uktwala itself does not assist, and then the other is to just pronounce, I'm leaving this and so forth. So I think many of them fall under these two categories. One, they're fake. One, others they have, but it is the pressures that they have. Sorry. And thirdly, it's the religious colonization.
Yeah.
They get preached to. If you have problems, you are going to be vulnerable to anything. When you have problems and I come and tell you that, no, you left God and come back to God. So because you have problems, you are vulnerable. You think, because I'm having ancestors not working, let me try God. And that's why they live and go this side.
Yeah. Finally, the great one, I'm told we've run out of time. In your view, what is the state of a black man today? What is it that you want Africans, blacks in particular, to understand regarding spirituality?
That it informs everything in their lives. Other people are boxing spirituality like religion. I had a meeting with one of the members of the G20 this week, and we were talking about matters in G20. And I said to them, you see, your problem, you box me, and you want to include me on matters of spirituality. And I said, African indigenous spirituality informs everything. In spirituality, we can talk about climate change because there's cosmology in spirituality. We can talk about economy because the economic system today is suppressing the black man, because this economic system was not birthed in African systems. It was birthed in Eurocentric systems. They are African systems. It falls under African spirituality. We can bring systems economically that will help African people. All our ways of life revolve around our own spirituality. That's why, Semex, I am always saying, whatever discussions we can have of politicians, how the country is, a black man is this and that, if we do not address the spiritual condition of a black man, I tell you here, you can record me, you can write it down, 10 years, 20 years to come, when we are very old, both of us,
yes,
we can sit and you'll say, hey, you said it. We are not going to solve anything. It is the foundation of life. It's the foundation of everything. That's why Muslims, Arabs have made Islam religion, not spirituality, as a foundation of everything. Jews have made Judaism. Where did they see that? Because African indigenous spirituality predates all religions. They saw that in spirituality and they used a religion to make it a foundation. We must address our spirituality.
Where do we begin?
We begin by knowledge. We begin by seeking knowledge. We have to seek knowledge from those who are genuine. And I've tried to cover some three characteristics. Say, these are the three things people do. Let's not just listen to podcasts and look at TV of people who can articulate themselves well. That's not enough.
Who don't have the reference, the history. We don't know where they come from.
They don't give us, they only tells us they need to give us proper information. And then from there, we also include, because all of us, we are spiritual. I might be spiritually gifted, but I am spiritual. And you are also spiritual. I have spiritual guides. You have spiritual guides. Consult. Many people who come to me, they first consult. And they are told by their own ancestors to come to me.
Finally, the great one, as Imboni, what are your predictions? What do you see happening to South Africa, to Africa going forward? What is it that we should focus on going forward?
Yeah, I ran away from the word prediction because
I didn't want to use the word.
Yes, anyone can predict.
Yes.
But we are revealed.
Yes.
And also, I don't like to lie or try to... example, I saw the miners who died, 287. They can send you the video and the date. I saw 2 days before it happened. So normally revelations, you don't choose, you are just given at a particular time for a certain reason. So I'm not that person who wants to say something when I don't see. Well, For me now, spirituality is awakening, and noises are now coming up. Things are going to get worse before they get better. I'm one of those that people will call the prophet of doom. Things will get better, but before they get better, Africans will start awakening more on self-determination, on guarding their spirituality, and also not believing everything and having a voice. But now things are still going to get a little bit worse
before they get better.
Before they start getting better.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, we wish we had more time, but we'll definitely make a part 2. Imboni has agreed to come back to the show. Imboni Dr. Uzwi-Lezwe Radebe is the leader and the founder of the Revelation Spiritual Home. Ladies and gentlemen, make sure that you subscribe to the channel. It's the only way we can bring you these high-level conversations. I am Samex Kamaku.